Hello YouTube friends. Today I'm going to talk about things to consider when feeding your seahorses frozen Mysis shrimp. And this topic is inspired by Casey, who has large seahorses and was discussing with me different feeding options. I wanted to talk about this because there are some things that we can do to help keep our seahorses healthier when we are feeding them frozen Mysis shrimp. You'll see here that my preferred brand is BioPure Hikari Mysis shrimp. I like this brand because it is very clean and rinses very easily, so that means less pollution in the tank in the long run. And it is available in cubes, small packets, or large flat packs. Typically I buy the large flat packs because it's more economical. But if they're out of those, I might buy the cubes versus buying another brand. Notice the cubes, they just pop right out. Now, when I'm working with the flat pack, I will often break up the pieces. And when I look for the size that I want, that is the amount for the feeding, I will take a knife and sort of saw through a little bit of it and score it so that when I break it in half, it breaks very easily, and I can finally add that cold water, which I left running that whole time so it's super cold. And then I return the frozen Mysis back to the freezer right away. I don't want it to defrost any more than it has to. Now you'll see the freshly cut Mysis there, that clump is floating. That means it's still pretty frozen. You want it to defrost in regular tap water so that when you do add it to the tank, it won't just stay floating at the top. It will sink a little bit. You know it is finished defrosting sufficiently when that pile or that group of shrimp sinks to the bottom. And then you'll notice I just stir it up with my clean finger, and then I add it to a sieve or strainer. I rinse out the container, and you'll notice the container is glass, and that's purposeful because glass does not retain bacteria as easily as plastic would, for example, and it's very easy to keep clean. I rinse the shrimp very well once it's in that sieve or strainer, and then I bring it to the tank. And you're going to see here I put a pinch of it in the seahorse feeding station because I'm still training all of my seahorses to eat from it. One of them does eat from it pretty regularly, but the other ones still prefer to take advantage of broadcast feeding. Now you'll notice that I have some movement in the tank. There's a little bit of current, not super strong, more of a moderate strength, and it keeps the Mysis suspended, which triggers the feeding response from the seahorses because they like that movement. That's their natural predator coming out there. You'll also know that other animals are in the tank. Those are different kinds of shrimp I have. I have ghost shrimp, I have peppermint shrimp, I have cleaner shrimp, and they are also eating the frozen Mysis. I like that because it helps keep the tank very clean, especially when I'm broadcast feeding. Ideally, you want the shrimp to be consumed by all of the animals, seahorses and shrimp, within 15 to 20 minutes. And the reason that you don't want the shrimp lying around, and the reason that I don't defrost shrimp any sooner than what I need for the tank feeding in that moment, is because all of that time that the shrimp is exposed out of the freezer is an opportunity for bacteria to start growing. Now, normally small amounts of bacteria aren't a big deal, but when shrimp is allowed to sit for a long time, it can build a lot of bacteria, and that is very bad for seahorses. Seahorses have a very primitive digestive system, If you look at this diagram, you can see where the stomach is, and it looks like there's barely any stomach at all. In fact, some people will say that seahorses don't have a stomach. Maybe it is not a true stomach compared to other fish whose digestive systems have evolved over time. Seahorses, because their digestive system is so simple, they cannot afford to have a lot of food sitting in their system that has accumulated bacteria in it. It really impacts their immune system. So the less time that food can be exposed to defrosted states, the better it is for the seahorses. That means they won't be taking in as many of that harmful bacteria. So that's why I talk about using very cold water, not defrosting any of the food before you need it, putting it back in the freezer right away, and only putting in enough that can be consumed with 15 or 20 minutes time. As far as the shrimp that ends up in the feeding station, you might think, well, maybe that's sitting for a while if the seahorses are chasing the other shrimp. And sometimes it may sit a little bit longer, but as you can see here, my ghost shrimp helps out with that. It will either stir up the shrimp that's in there and let it go ahead and go into the tank, or it will gobble up the shrimp itself. So really nothing is ever sitting for too long, which is really the best health situation for the seahorses. You'll notice here, I also, when I'm finished feeding right away, I will rinse the strainer very well, and then I will put it on top of the tank and let it air dry so that bacteria does not build. And then I also clean out and wipe out very well my container that I defrost the shrimp in here. And all of those things work to counteract any buildup of bacteria that can be harmful to seahorses. So anyway, you can see seahorses and shrimp chasing food all around. And they've gotten quite good at it, but it's working very well. And I look forward to reporting out long-term more about how the seahorses are doing. Thanks so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you next time. Take care.